Hello lovelies! Welcome to my channel, or back to my channel if you've been here before. It's good to see you either way. You read the intro, right? We're jumping right into spoopy season. This month, July, is Summerween. The older I get, the more my soul craves the spooky. But not like the terrifying horror-filled spooky. More like the cute, derpy, spoopy spooky. You'll see as we go along if you're unfamiliar. In today's video, we're going to take this unassuming trunk-like suitcase thing. It's actually a playset, and it looks like that, or at least it did. And we're going to turn it into... Stay tuned and find out.
Even though this playset had come wrapped in a bag, it was dusty at best, and I don't know where it's been at worst. So it started off by getting a good cleaning. I washed the doll and couch, as you can see, with warm soapy water, and I gave the rest of the playset a wipe down with a Lysol wipe. I don't know why I don't have footage of that. I pushed the wrong button or something. Anyway, it got clean. Now that the playset is all clean and dry and sanitized, let the customization commence! Okay, so I started by removing the picture that was on the back wall. I thought it was going to be a sticker, but it turns out it was a sticker on like some cereal box card that was hot glued in, and most of the hot glue had already like stopped sticking. So I easily took that off and then drew in a template of the depth of the top and side walls of that top part of the playset. And I'm using the template that I just made to draw out the rectangular shapes that I will need on black craft foam. I've decided that I want to customize that back wall, and not just like the square of the back wall, but around the sides and the roof of it as well. Just drawing on the black foam with pencil is good enough. You can obviously see the pencil marks. And then I just cut it out with regular scissors. I'm going with black craft foam because I don't have to prime it. It's already like a nice base coat, or like a base color. And then I obviously cut out a square using, again, that picture as a template. And this little piece with the notch is for that roof. The notch is so that the locking mechanism will continue to work, because I really like the fact that the playset closes. It keeps it dust free, and I want to maintain that. Now I'm going in with my dotting tool, and I'm using some plastic canvas here as a ruler. If you're going to do something like this and you have a smaller ruler, go for it. I couldn't find a smaller ruler. The only ruler that I could find was my sewing ruler, which would have been comically large to use in this situation. It also would have been really difficult to maneuver because it's so much longer than what I'm working on, so the plastic canvas works. I'm just using it to rough out some equally-ish spaced lines, and it doesn't have to be perfect here. And by using the dotting tool to draw out the lines, I'm getting just a little bit of depth to the line, so it's not just a drawing, it's, you know, an indent. Now that the lines are all drawn out, I'm going in again with my dotting tool to indent in some stones. So they're just like a roughly drawn square with rounded corners. And I'm pressing pretty firmly with the dotting tool because I don't just want to draw these, I want to like draw them in 3D. So they look like three-dimensional stones. And if you're going to do this, remember to stagger your stones on each line, because those connection points won't be stacked on top of each other. It's stronger in real life if you stagger them. Now that my fingers are destroyed by drawing on the foam, I put that aside for a little bit, pulled out my craft knife, and got to work roughing up this fireplace. The top part of the fireplace is made out of like this rubbery material, which was really easy to cut. I tried going in with the file to sort of rough things up even more, but I don't think the file really did anything. And now I didn't like the, what's that called? The hourglass on the floor. So I'm just cutting that out because I'm going to leave the sticker, the thing on the floor there, I think is a sticker, or at least it's glued down better than the one at the back. So I just cut out the hourglass because I didn't like it. Now I'm going in with a black wash. So it's just regular black acrylic paint, watered down. And I'm just slapping that on the fireplace. It's looking pretty messy. As you can see, it's like pooling and puddling and pulling away from areas. I wasn't sure if this was going to work, but I figure, what the heck, I'm just going to slap on a layer and then come back later and see if it's done the trick. And I put some of the black on that hole that I cut out of the floor as well. I figured that would look kind of cool. Now I'm going in with this canvas material, and I cut it to be the same size and shape as that back picture. And then I went ahead and painted the background, and I just splashed on and roughly blended some red, orange, and pale pink for the background. Now I'm going in with green acrylic paint, and this is going to be a tapestry. So, spoiler alert, the foam that I was working on earlier and that I'll eventually come back to is going to be like a stone wall. I want this playset to end up looking like a haunted castle, like an old stone castle. Drawing out all those stones with the dotting tool really hurt my fingers, and towards the end of the back wall, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So there's a portion of it that just has nothing drawn on it. And I thought, it'd be really cool. Stone castles often had these giant woven tapestries that worked as like insulation hung up on the walls. And I thought, well, if I make something like that, then I can hang it up over top of the stone wall, make it look a little bit more realistic-ish, and cover up the fact that I didn't draw any stones. So that's what we're going with. Okay, now finally back to the stones. And I'm going in with a gray paint. This is just a slightly thinned acrylic paint, just black with a little bit of white mixed in. Super simple. And I'm just slapping that on the raised part of the brick walls. I'm trying to keep distinction between like the bricks and then the like mortar or whatever was used to like glue them together. Yeah, so I'm just slapping that on the raised parts. The original gray that I had used wasn't quite bright enough, so I added a little bit more white and then went back and fixed up that little side wall and started working on the back wall. And for this, I found these like rounded, the way I'm using the brush here, it made it look more brick-like. If I tried to like swipe in lines, it looked too much like the bricks had been painted, whereas that swirly motion made it look more like, or not like brick, like stone. Either way, the swirly motion looks more realistic than a swipey motion. Now I've gone back to the tapestry. It was really a game of going back and forth, putting on as much as I could, with wet paint on one thing, and then forcing myself to stop so I didn't ruin it, and working on something else, and then while that something else was drying, going back to the other. And yeah, so now we're back to the tapestry, and the poofs are now becoming trees with some lovely light brown trunks. Ooh, isn't that gorgeous? Kind of looks like a face. Anyway, I decided to add some more dimension and went in and just like stippled or dotted light green, yellow, and orange on the tree poofs and the grass. and I did a little bit of dry brushing of a dark brown on top of the trunks, again, just to add some dimension, which is probably completely useless because I'm going to age the snot out of this later, but I had to like make it look brand new before aging it. This is kind of necessary because I'm starting with nothing, so I have to like turn it into something first before I destroy it. Anyway, the white that I'm painting on now is, if you can't tell already, going to be a maiden because, you know, tapestries need some sort of figure on them, and I figured a maiden would be easier to paint than, say, a knight or, you know, kings and queens or something. Yeah, putting that white on top of the color was more difficult than I thought it would be because that's a really thin, cheap white, and so it didn't cover very well. But I think I made it work. It's not too bad. And I'm kind of painting this from memory. I had found an image that I wanted to use for my tapestry on my phone, but of course I'm recording on my phone, so I couldn't look at it at the same time. But it doesn't matter if it looks, you know, kind of derpy in the end. Yeah, because I'm going to age it. So anyway, I used some tinfoil scrunched up into a ball to try and give some texture to the stones. I want them to look kind of like pitted and old and worn down. And I did that after I painted, so it didn't really do much. I ended up going in with my fingernails to sort of cut and slice the stones, and that worked pretty well. Now I am aging, finally aging the stones, and going in with a dark brown wash, so like dark brown paint that's been watered down. I don't know, it didn't work as well as I had hoped. So after painting it on, I went in and dabbed a lot of it off with a paper towel, and that actually worked really well. After the dark brown, I went in with a pale, like a tan brown, just again to add some more dimension. And yeah, I did that on all the pieces. There you can see some of the black. That black, there's no stone. I gave up. Pushing as hard as I had to get the dimension and the like 3D-ness of those stones really hurt my fingers. So that's why the tapestry. Okay, now I'm dry brushing some green, and that's for you know, like moss, mold, that kind of thing. I felt like the black was too, it worked out really, really well, but it was just too dark. There was no dimension to the fireplace. So what I decided to do is kind of dry brush, but not really, some gold paint on the fireplace. Just the, like, I don't know what that top part is called. I ended up making some more foam pieces to go around the sides of the bottom of the playset as well, because I just felt like if I'm going through that much work to make walls, I might as well make walls that go right down to the floor. So I hot glued those in when they were done. I just did the same thing that I did to the top, to the bottom. Now I am cutting up this couch that came with the playset. I removed the back middle foot and then just like roughed up the edges, cut out some gouges in both the wood and the fabric part, and then roughed up the edges with the nail file. Then I went in with some gesso because again, I have to like bring it to its sort of brand new color before aging it. And I figured gessoing over that coral color would make it easier to paint in the color that I want to end up going with. And I also gessoed the Anna doll. It is the next day and everything is dry and the vigor has been renewed. So we're jumping right back into things with a second coat of gesso on the couch and eventually the doll, but I don't record that part. Um, anyway, the first coat did a really good job of covering up the color. You can still see some of the coral though, and I want to make sure that that doesn't show through when I go with the color that I actually want to use. So now I am aging the tapestry, starting with a brownish, tannish white to sort of dull the colors. And as you can see, I went ahead and didn't record that I finished up the maiden, gave her some more details, including a yellow dress, and added a unicorn. This is inspired by a tapestry that actually exists and that I found online. And considering that that was done by memory, I think I did a pretty good job. So while that wash was still wet, I went ahead and did kind of a dry brush of a darker brown. And I'm glad that I didn't wait until the wash dried, because it was much easier to move the dark brown on a wet surface. So it didn't, clump too much. And then the last thing I did before letting the tapestry dry was go over with a very, very dark, almost like a charcoal gray. So not a pure black, just around the edges, and a little bit in the middle, just to make it look kind of like really old and moldy. And then I hung it up to dry. I don't know if that was necessary, but it looked cute. Okay, now that the gesso on the couch is dry, it's time to add color, and I decided to go with green. Part of the reason I did that is because on the original sticker for the floor of the playset, there's like a rug or like a little carpet or something, and it's kind of a orangey pink. That's why I chose the orangey pink for the background of the tapestry. And then because of the green on the grass and the tree, I decided to pull that green onto the couch so that everything is kind of cohesive and matches. Because I wanted this to look like it would have been a very beautiful room at some point in time. I went ahead off camera and started fraying the tapestry after it had dried. And now I'm going in and cutting a rip because I want it to look like the tapestry has like torn and part of it's falling down. But this is really strong canvas fabric, so I wasn't able to actually rip it. I had to cut instead and then go in and pull off threads to fray it. And that was just like matching it up to the background to see if it would fit. I gave the couch a second coat of green paint after that had dried, and now I am hot gluing the tapestry to the stone wall, starting in the top corner that is still going to be attached. And yeah, now I'm just gluing down all the points that I want it to stick, and kind of folding and billowing and making it look as like organic and natural as possible while still anchoring it in all the places that I need it to be anchored. And that's what it ended up looking like. I think it's really, really pretty. It's just going to go in the back, and I'm not going to bother gluing that in place because it fits perfectly snug. It's not going to move. Now that the fireplace is adequately aged, I'm just giving it a coat of Mod Podge. Now, after I put the gold, I went in a little bit with some pale green dry brush to kind of give the fireplace a look of oxidized brass. And I think that turned out pretty good. You can't see it right now because of the Mod Podge, but you'll see it later. I did a bunch of work spontaneously and didn't bother recording, including finishing up the sort of what the couch would have looked like. And for that, I did some dry brushing of a pale, almost neon green, as well as painting in the wooden parts brown. Now I am starting the aging process with a wash of a very, very dark gray. And I'm just letting that sit and pool wherever it wants to go, manipulating it a little bit, pushing it where I want it to go, but letting it just kind of puddle and pool wherever it wants to. And that goes on the whole surface of the couch, front, back, all the sides, the material and the wooden parts. Now I'm going in with a light, like that tannish brown color. And this one I'm using the stippling motion to control a little bit more where I want that color to go. I don't want it to be as thick as the black. So that stippling gives me a little bit more control. Now I am working on the doll, and I use a light flicking motion to paint the dress in a slightly bluish gray. I've decided to give her long sleeves, and now I'm going to go in and paint the skin, and for that I'm going with a very pale light blue, and that's going to be the hands and face. Eventually I kind of started painting the feet, but then it was really hard to paint the underside, so I just ended up going with all one color basically for the feet and the underside of the dress. But the hands and the face are going to be this light blue, and at this point I wasn't sure what I was going to do with her eyes. Painting this face was really difficult. Actually, painting this whole doll was really difficult. I don't know that I'm the best to explain what I'm doing here, so if you yourself are going to be painting a doll like this and making it look ghosty, I will highly recommend that you go and look up videos on Warhammer paintings and like D&D figure paintings, because those dudes know what they're doing. That's where I got all my information. Okay, so now I'm using this really old cotton swab that was like from my childhood. I don't remember where I got it from, but it's old. And I just took off the tiniest little bits and stuffed it in the cutouts that I made in the arm and the seat of this couch. I wanted it to look like the stuffing was coming out. And once the glue dried for that, then I went in and aged it a little bit, starting with that tannish brown with just a little bit of yellow, and then some pale green, and eventually some very, very dark gray. It ended up looking a little bit more like straw than fluff, but I think that works because I'm pretty sure old furniture was filled with like straw and feathers and stuff like that. So I think this fits sort of the time frame of this old castle that I'm going for.
I wasn't kidding when I said you should check out what other people are doing within the Warhammer and D&D spaces for how to paint this doll, because she looks really cool, but I can't really explain what I did because I don't even really know what I did. So with that, let's just head to the reveal. And there it is. I think it turned out really, really good. So the reason that I removed one of the legs at the back of the couch was so that I could glue it right down over this, like, it's like a little mini staircase. I didn't want to do any more stonework, so I just glued the couch right there. But it works perfect because I can close it back up. I just got hot glued down. The fireplace door can still open and close, but if I try to close it to close up the playset, it gets stuck. So I think I'm just going to leave it open permanently. I think that looks cute. And this way I can still, again, close it up. There's the tapestry all done. I ended up putting some, that's shelf liner sticker paper in the wood grain. I just stuck that down so it would look like I had flooring up here without adding extra bulk. The little bits of tapestry that I cut off when I cut the rip ended up getting glued onto the floor. The top of the fireplace, that's what I mean by it having sort of a goldish, greenish, brassy tint to it. So it kind of looks like a fancy brass fireplace hood thingy that oxidized. The stonework along the sides, at the bottom, even behind the couch there. And this little chunk of the fireplace that I cut off here, I glued on the floor and aged that. So it looks like the chunk fell off the fireplace. Everything has been coated in a matte Mod Podge to protect it. Although I'm going to be gentle when I open and close. It's going to be more for display than play anyway, so I think it will be treated gently enough that I won't have to worry. Here's how Anna turned out. She looks a little bit more muted and creepier in person, I think. But I think she turned out really, really good. And her creepy blue eyes. She still has some of her articulation. I'm not going to be moving her around too much, but she does still have a little bit of posability, even with all the layers of paint. So there is my finished Spookified Play Compact. And that's it for video number 1 of Summerween. I'll see you in my next video for another, well, I don't know how spooky we're going to get with that one, but we'll see. Until then, stay fabulous, stay spooky, and know that you're loved. Bye.